Okay, so welcome to CPD for dental nurses. This is a summary of the obligations that dental nurses, or all registrants in fact, have for their CPD and the dates that you have to do it by. Enhanced CPD was introduced on August 2018. Before that, there was CPD, but it was a slightly different version. And over the last number of years, what has happened is that everyone has been moved over to the enhanced CPD. So the main differences are that dental nurses are required to do 50 hours CPD over a 5-year period. You only record verifiable CPD. Now, doing general unverifiable CPD is encouraged, but you don't have to actually record it. You need to have a personal development plan, and we'll be looking at that later. The CPD is linked to the GDC standards. Again, we'll be looking at that. You're required to reflect on your CPD, and we'll be looking at that. And you are required to record your CPD each year on the eGDC system. Now, this is the eGDC website. When you register, you are supposed to set up an eGDC account for yourself so you can pay your ARF and do your CPD. So this is the sort of diagram for CPD, and we are going to start in this top right-hand corner, plan. So the GDC's idea is that you plan, you do, you reflect, and you record. So we're going to start by looking at plan. So think about your field of practice. What is it you're doing? What skills do you need, etc., etc. Identify your learning needs. In other words, what skills do you need to learn or brush up on? Link to the GDC's development outcomes. We'll look at that, and design your PDP. And we're going to look at PDPs as well. So your personal development plan is the key to all of your CPD. And essentially, this comes from your annual appraisal. Now, your employer or your line manager or the dentist you nurse for, whatever, should be giving you an appraisal at least once a year. And the point of the appraisal is to identify which bits, what skills you need, which skills you've got, what further training you need, all this sort of thing. And there is an article on appraisals and also on PDPs in the British Dental Nurses Journal, which is available to members. That's in the members area of the website, and that's in the spring 23 edition. So the whole point of your PDP is to identify which training you need to keep your current skills up to date and to develop new skills. So this PDP should be adjusted, should be reviewed and adjusted every year as you develop more skills and then look at developing further ones. So your PDP should include, or must include, the CPD you plan to undertake over your 5-year cycle. And that has to be relevant to the tasks that you perform, your current field of practice or your intended field of practice. If, for example, the dental practice that you work for was going to start offering sedation, then obviously you would be looking at gaining these assisting with sedation skills. It also should include the anticipated development outcomes that link to each activity and the timeframes in which you expect to complete your CPD. So, first year you might be doing X, and the second year you would be doing Y. So there is a template PDP on the GDC website, but you don't have to do this. You can use any PDP. If you are a BADM member, you can download one from our website, or you can get a hard copy. And we'll look at that a bit later on. So your personal development plan, as I said, current BADN members can download one of these from our website, or you can get an actual hard copy one by sending an A4 stamped addressed envelope to the BADN office with PDP in the top left-hand corner of the outer envelope. And as I said, there are articles on PDPs and appraisals available in the spring 23 edition of the British Dental Nurses Journal. So that's just something. I will be sharing these slides with you after the presentation, so you don't necessarily have to write anything down. So the GDC development outcomes, they have established 4 development outcomes, which link your CPD to the standards for the dental team. If you're not familiar with the standards for the dental team, I suggest that you download a copy of the GDC website and read it. So any CPD activity that you do has to link to one of these outcomes. So the GDC encourage you to cover all 4 outcomes over your 5-year cycle, but that's not an absolute necessary. They just suggest that so you get a wide range of CPD. And some CPD could link to more than one outcome. For example, we have linked this particular presentation to B, effective management of self, and D, maintenance of skills, behaviours and attitudes which maintain patient confidence. So that's that. So sometimes they can cover all. That's unusual, but it has to cover at least one, and preferably more than that. Okay, so we're back to the little diagram. So now we're on do. So complete your CPD activity, do whichever courses, online, etc., that you need to do. Collect evidence for each activity. Basically, we're talking about certificates. You need to have something to show that you have completed this activity. Meet your hours requirement. That is 50 over the 5-year cycle, but you have to do 10 hours every 2 subsequent years. And then adjust your PDP as needed throughout your cycle. So as you work through the 5-year cycle, you might find that your needs change. So the hours required, as a dental nurse, you are required to complete 50 hours verifiable CPD over a 5-year period. Now, you can't wait. In the previous system, you could wait till the last 6 months and then rush it all through. You can't do that anymore. So you have to declare 10 hours per subsequent 2 years. This all gets to be very complicated, but there's a diagram in a minute to show you. So you can declare a 0 hours year, but then the next year you'd have to declare 10 hours. You can declare more than 1 0 hours year during your 5-year cycle, but not 2 consecutive ones. So if, for example, year 1, you did nothing, then year 2, you would have to do 10. But then in year 3, you could do nothing. That's not the best way to do it. It's better to spread it out. So if you look at this handy little chart, you can see that if you do nothing in the first year, you have to do 10 hours in the year 2. If, on the other hand, you did 3 hours in year 1, then you'd have to do 7 hours in year 2, and then 3 hours in year 3, so that any 2 subsequent years add up to 10 hours. I don't know why they made it this complicated. I honestly don't, but they have. So then you have to have evidence of CPD, and you're responsible for obtaining and keeping the documentary evidence. Basically, this means certificates. So the certificate should include the subject, learning content, aims and objectives, the GDC development outcomes, the date that you did it, the hours that you spent doing it, your name and registration number, and that the CPD is subject to quality assurance, and the confirmation that all the information is provided full and accurate. That's fine. So the GDC does not approve any CPD providers. It's up to you to find stuff that you feel would be relevant to your practice. And there is a bit of an issue about the certificates. Does anybody work for the armed forces? No. Does anybody work in a hospital?
No.
Yes.
Okay. You have got a bit of an issue because hospitals provide, or HEE England, or whatever they're now calling it, because they keep changing its name, provides compulsory CPD for all hospital staff. But that is for staff throughout the hospital, not just for dental staff. So because the GDC requires that your certificate includes their GDC development outcomes of the CPD activity, you cannot actually use the compulsory hospital CPD for your GDC CPD because it does not include the GDC development outcomes, because HE England are providing it for everybody. So if they put the GDC development outcomes on, they'd have to put everybody's outcomes on, or they'd have to, make different certificates for the dental staff. We have been banging our heads against a brick wall with the GDC about this. It's also an issue that affects people in the armed forces. And the GDC is quite determined that they will not accept the HEE certificates because they don't have the GDC development outcomes on. Now, this is quite frankly nonsense, because if this CPD was provided by the Mickey Mouse School of Dentistry, fair enough, but it's Health Education England, who are reputable. I mean, they are, the government, essentially. So we are currently having discussions with the GDC about this. The reason I'm stressing this is that last year, a number of people used their statutory hospital CPD certificates to declare their 10 hours. It was then not allowed, and so those dental nurses were then struck off for not having done the requisite number of hours, even though they thought they had. So this is something that we'll come back to in the discussion part afterwards, but just to explain to you that there is possibly an issue. So you also have to keep an activity log, which is a log of all the verifiable CPD you have completed over your 5 years. So this log has to include the title and description of the CPD, the date, the number of hours, the GDC development outcomes, and reflection. And we'll look at reflection in a minute. Now, the GDC do again provide an activity log template, but you're not required to use that one. You can use any other. Again, there is a BADN one for if you're a member. And for the CPD to be verifiable, you must have recorded it on your activity log when you did it and have collected the appropriate certificate. But don't record any non-verifiable CPD on your activity log. That's just for you, for background, etc. And again, BADN, and I do apologise for the quality of the photographs here, BADN members can obtain a CPD activity log, either download it from the website, from the members area of the website, or you can get a hard copy from the BADN office. So you have to keep a CPD record, and this consists of your personal development plan, your activity log, and evidence, in other words, certificates of the CPD that you have undertaken. Okay, so now we are back to the little diagram and we're looking at reflect. This is the bit, I will be perfectly honest with you, I struggle with. You have to review your activity. You have to reflect on the impact of the activity on your daily practice and patients, make a record of your reflection, and again, adjust your PDP as needed. Now, I will be honest with you, I did a degree a couple of years ago and they were very big on reflection and I struggled with it because I sometimes think that there is stuff in education that is just jargon. That's personal opinion. So the GDC defines reflection and they've defined it there. Having looked at this and having talked to educationalists and having done my degree and all the rest of it, basically, I come to realize that reflection is something that you do anyway. It's just, I didn't think I did it. And I certainly didn't write it down afterwards. But basically, it's just thinking about what you've done. Was it good? Was it bad? Or did it help? How is this going to change the way you work? Those kind of things. So the GDC requires you to actually formally set aside time to ponder on these questions with regard to any CPD you've done, and then record that you've done it. So I'm not entirely sure why, but this is why you have to do it. So you can reflect on your CPD on your own, sitting quietly in a corner, or with your manager, perhaps in the appraisal, with colleagues or a group in peer review. You can do it every time you do a particular CPD activity, or you can do it at the end of the year and looking back on all of it. The only thing is you have to do it, and you have to record that you did it. I sort of got the hang of this when I realized that every time we organized a BADN conference, after the conference, Adam, Shirley, Val and I would sit down in our office with a cup of coffee and a couple of bars of chocolate and talk about the conference. You know, what bit went well, what bit didn't go well, which speakers were good, which of the speakers were popular, what worked, what didn't, and made sort of mental notes. Next year, make sure that there is a cloakroom facilities for people who come for the day, for example. And we do that. We call this the wash-up meeting. And we do that anyway. This apparently is reflection. Apparently, whenever you think about something you've done, this is reflection. It was news to me, I will be perfectly honest, but that's it. It's basically thinking about the activity that you've done, how it worked, how it didn't work, but then writing it down. So we're now back to the end a bit, record. So you have to ensure that your evidence matches the verifiable CPD. In other words, if you're going to declare 10 hours this year, make sure you have got valid certificates for those 10 hours. Complete your annual statement, and then at the end of the 5 years, you complete your end of cycle statement. So your annual CPD statement, you must complete your CPD by the 31st of July each year and submit the annual or end of cycle CPD statement. Now, this statement must include the number of hours of CPD you've done this year, that you kept a CPD record, that the CPD you've done is relevant to your practice, that you have a personal development plan, and that your statement is full and accurate. And you do this by logging into your account on the EGDC site. Now, 31st of July, you have to do it by the 31st of July. The 1st of August doesn't cut it. You have to complete your CPD. You have to have logged your hours this year by that time. We'll talk about this a bit later on, but those people who didn't do it last year, who thought the morning of the 1st of August was fine, it wasn't. And a whole load of people got struck off last year because they hadn't done it by the required date. The GDC claimed to randomly select people from the register to look at their CPD at any point. So if you are randomly selected, they will ask you for your CPD record. That's your personal development plan, your activity log, and your certificates. Now, this says you may also be included in the sampling if you do not meet your CPD requirements or if you fail to make any of the statements. This wording is taken from the GDC website. Forget the may also be, you will be. If you have not done it, the GDC will be in touch with you saying you are going to be struck off in the next month unless you appeal. So in summary, the new system requires you to record only the verifiable CPD, complete 50 hours over a 5-year period, but at least 10 over each 2-year period. Have a PDP, which links it to the standards, keep an activity log, make an annual declaration, and reflect. And this sort of sums it up. All the things that you need to do there. As I say, I'll be sending these slides out so you don't have to write anything down. Complete details of the CPD scheme with the guidance and the templates are available at this long address here. To reiterate, articles on appraisal and personal development planning are available in the winter. I'm sorry, that should say spring edition. And PDPs and activity logs are available to members to download or in hard copy. And most importantly, and I shall be stressing this over and over again, the 31st of July means the 31st of July. It doesn't mean the 1st of August or the first week in August or anything else. It means midnight on the 31st of July, and they don't take excuses. I would suggest that you start to do it mid-July, because the 30th and the 31st of July, an awful lot of people are trying to get it in at the last minute. And very often the GDC website crashes or sticks, or you can't do it. And they don't accept that as an excuse either. So don't leave it until the last couple of days. Start doing it at the latest the 3rd week in July.